Hello to you in the car, Banjul, Lofa County in Liberia, Accra, Abuja, Freetown, Monrovia, Nairobi, and our friends across the world. Thank you for joining us and welcome to this week's edition of your news and current affairs program, Weekly Top News, where we examine developing stories and news from a different angle. And it's come to you on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal, and online at wadr.org. You can listen to previous editions of this program online at wadr.org, AudioMark, and SoundCloud. I am Imo Edet, your anchor, and for the next hour, we will be looking at news stories and developments across the sub-region. Let's begin with the show with James Ejapon bringing us a summary of the reports and stories that made headlines during the week on the review. Good to have you, James, and welcome. What story are you starting with in the review?
Hello, Imo, and thank you for having me, and hello to you out there. The election in Sierra Leone dominated news events and activities during the week, so I will start my review from there. Now, the swift nature of President Maada Bio being sworn into office merely an hour after being pronounced winner of elections got people talking. But Imo, this is what that Sierra Leonean constitution states. Contending with his primary rival Samura Kamara of the main opposition All People's Congress APC, President Bio secured a resounding victory with a total of 1,566,932 votes, amounting for 56%. This mandate, the Electoral Commission said, allows him to serve a second term as president, extending his tenure by another 5 years. The BADR's Patrick Salia filed that report from Freetown.
I, Julius Maada Bio, do hereby, in the name of God, swear that I will at all times well and truly discharge the duties of the office of the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone according to law.
He prioritizes agriculture and a continuation of his flagship human capital development. His first inning has been characterized by economic and social problems, with inflation at a record high of about 27%. Out of the estimated 3.3 million registered voters in the polls on Saturday, 24th June, the Chief Electoral Commissioner Mohamed Conteh said only 2,800,691, which represents 83% of all the votes from all the 11,712 polling stations across the country, but there were 10,883 invalid votes.
Kamara Samura Kamara, All People's Congress, 1,148,262, representing 41.16%. Therefore, by the powers vested in me as the National Returning Officer, I hereby certify Bio Julius Maada having 1,566,932 of the valid vote cast, representing 56.17% of the total valid vote cast, duly elected.
He challenged anyone who feels dissatisfied with the results to utilize the judicial system. For many Sierra Leoneans, it should not be a win just for the Bio Sierra Leone People's Party SLPP. While the SLPP supporters, after the announcement of the presidential election results, took charge of what were earlier empty streets, the party office of the main opposition All People's Congress APC remained a deserted zone with armed state security personnel fully in charge of the surrounding. Standing on the railway line where the main opposition All People's Congress Party headquarters is situated, 3 barricades have been erected by the security forces, manned by the military and police jointly. According to the commander here, who decided not to speak on record, it is one for the safety and security of the party's office here and the security of people in the surrounding, this Brookfields community precisely.
We're still in Sierra Leone. Dr. Samura Kamara, the main opposition figure, denounced the credibility of the 2023 general election results. Dr. Kamara categorically rejects the outcome announced by the Electoral Commission and considers it to be a grave assault on the country's democracy. Expressing deep sadness, he views the declaration of the election result as a dark day for his beloved nation. However, Dr. Kamara acknowledges and appreciates the support of both local and international partners who champion transparency and democracy throughout the electoral process. He vows to overcome what he described as perceived injustice and remains committed to fighting for a better Sierra Leone. Still on electoral matters, now the European Union Election Observer Mission to Nigeria has highlighted 6 key areas that require improvement in the country's electoral process following the 2023 general elections. Mr. Barry Andrews, the chief observer of the mission, shared these findings during a presentation in Abuja on Tuesday. The recommendations put forth by the mission were based on the observations during the general elections held on February 25th, March 18th, and April 15th. WADL's Abuja correspondent Usman Umar was at the event and filed this report.
The mission has identified several key areas of concern, including ambiguities in the law, the establishment of a transparent process for selecting members of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), the need for real-time publication and access to election results, and the protection of media practitioners. It has also criticized the discrimination against women in elected and appointed positions, as well as the lack of accountability for electoral offenses.
Nigeria has signed up to key regional and international commitments for democratic election. While we consider the electoral legal framework provides an adequate foundation for the conduct of democratic elections, there are ambiguities in the law. For example, the Electoral Act 2022, which had its first test in a general election in 2023, and other legal instruments evidenced gaps in terms of transparency, accountability, and inclusivity, and left room for uncertain implementation.
Speaking on behalf of INEC on the sidelines of the presentation by EU Mission, Festus Okoye, who is the chairman Voter Education and Information Committee of the Commission, admitted that there were glitches, but also said the Election Petition Tribunal is in best position to judge the performance of the Commission.
5 of the political parties nominated and got accredited over 170,000 polling agents. So what that means is that they had primary evidence of the results from the polling unit. And it is those results from the polling units, together with the beavers as a machine itself, that goes to the collation center. So it is not true, and it cannot be correct.
Elsewhere, the Republic of Ireland has underscored the need for a peaceful election in Liberia ahead of the presidential and legislative elections. Voters will on October 10th go to the polls to elect the president along with 73 representatives and 15 senators. The current President George is seeking re-election in a process strongly contested by former President Joseph Boakai. The WADL's Darlington Pokpa filed that report.
The Ireland Deputy Head of Mission to Liberia said peaceful elections not only promote national growth and inclusion, but also attract foreign direct investment and drive tourism. Simons Makoma's statement that essentially based on healthy democracy on transparent and credible ballot comes ahead of Liberia's October 10 polls, which the European Union (EU) is expected to deploy an electoral observation mission.
It's our view that ultimately peaceful elections will help Liberia stand out as a role model and example in the region. The effect may not be immediate, but in the long run, these are things that can help Liberia attract investment in tourism and thereby contribute to development.
For his part, a commissioner at the National Elections Commission, Boaka Dukle, assured that the commission remains committed to conducting free, fair, and transparent elections. Dukle reiterated that significant progress has been made to ensure the 2023 elections are conducted peacefully.
The Election Commission is working with political parties and stakeholders to ensure a peaceful 2023 elections, and I speak about the Farmington Declaration. Additionally, against violence in the election. But in addition to that, we have signed protocol with political parties called the VAWI, Violence Against Women in Elections and Politics.
Despite the Electoral Commission's announced commitments, Chairman of the Independent National Commission on Human Rights, Councillor Denster Brown, says the refusal of the electoral umpire to enforce the elections laws is breeding conflicts among aspirants involved with pre-campaigning activities.
We calling on the Election Commission people to be very mindful, because anything happens, we hold them responsible. Because the peace that we are talking about, they are the custodian of peace in the society during the election period.
Months before the polls, the political climate is relatively calm as candidates from both the ruling coalition for democratic change and the opposition parties wishing to contest the elections are busy with the nomination process.
Now, during the week, the exit of MINUSMA from Mali has also dominated security discourse, as this saw hundreds converge on the capital Bamako in solidarity with the Transition Authority over its request for the United Nations to withdraw the peacekeeping force deployed in the country. The rally on Thursday comes ahead of the vote at the UN Security Council, which may end the decade-long operation launched in 2013 to stabilize Mali in the face of a deadly insurgency. The United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission MINUSMA's current mandate expired on June 30th, but instead of renewal, Bamako asked the 13,000-strong men mission to depart. The Malian Foreign Minister Abdoulaye Diop cited the crisis of confidence between the two parties as a major pointer in their request. Remaining in Mali, the release of the provisional result of the constitutional referendum triggered dissent as some individuals contested the outcome. The United Front Against the Referendum issued a press release highlighting irregularities and expressing its intention to pursue legal action, urging the Constitutional Court to invalidate the result. However, regional and international bodies recognized the significance of the referendum as a crucial milestone in the journey towards restoring civilian governance by March 2024. Matisi had the details in this report by Bamako correspondent Ramatu Hadara.
As the Constitutional Court prepares to announce the final result of the constitutional referendum, there are growing voices contesting the provisional figures that were announced by the Independent Election Management Authority last week. The United Front Against the Referendum, which has consistently opposed the process from the beginning, has raised concerns over irregularities and fraudulent acts. Sheriff Kone, a member of the United Front Against the Referendum, has denounced the provisional result and highlighted the alleged irregularities.
These results, insufficient to legitimize the referendum, are the product of planned fraud. That's why we reject them, because the military voted twice without any electoral roll or tally sheet. The results were communicated to the Centralization Commission without being accompanied by a report.
Since the announcement of the results, neither the transitional president nor any member of the Malian government has publicly commented on the conduct of the vote. Le Front Uni contre le Référendum, United Front Against the Referendum, has taken legal action to demand the annulment of the provisional result of the referendum.
We have appealed to the Constitutional Court to annul these results and, above all, to invalidate the referendum as a whole on the grounds that it did not involve all parts of the country.
It is important to note that the current constitution stipulates that a constitutional referendum is only considered valid if it is conducted throughout the entire country.
So that was Matisi with details in this report, filed by Bamako correspondent Ramatu Hadara. Let's anchor in Senegal, where President Macky Sall has received the final report from the National Dialogue, which he officially initiated on May 31, 2023. The report was presented during a ceremony held at the State House and attended by key participants involved in the dialogue. One notable outcome highlighted in the report is the reduction to a range between 0.6% and 0.8% of required signatures for presidential candidacy sponsorship, which was previously set at 1% of registered voters. As a reminder, opposition political parties, including PASTEF-led opponent Usman Sonko, as well as civil society organizations, boycotted the dialogue, while President Sall assures to address the nation after the Muslim feast Tabaski. There are already debate and projections about the outcome. Well, Imo, that's the much we can take on the review of developing stories this week. It is back to you.
Thank you, James Japan, for the reviews of stories that made headlines during the week. Well, let's now make room for some discussions.
Don't go anywhere. Weekly Top News will be right back. And we're back. Weekly Top News.
Our discussion in this edition anchors in Sierra Leone, where President Julius Maada Bio secured victory in the country's general election with more than 56% of the votes to avoid a runoff against main rival Samura Kamara of the All People's Congress (APC). Bio, who is 59, was running for re-election after first term marred by growing frustration over economic hardship. Kamara, 72, who suffered a narrow defeat in the 2018 election, received about 41% of the votes this time. Vote tallying had already been disputed by the APC, which condemned in a statement on Monday an alleged lack of inclusiveness, transparency, and responsibility by the Election Commission. The party pointed to the lack of information about which polling stations or districts the ballots were coming from. European Union observers said at a news conference also on Monday that a lack of transparency and communication by the Electoral Authority had led to mistrust in the electoral process. The monitors said they witnessed violence at 7 polling stations during voting hours and at 3 others during the closing and counting stages. There were also fears as the results were announced that more unrest could take place if none of the 13 candidates managed an outright victory. Well, the head of the Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone, Mohamed Conteh, had said any citizen who lawfully voted may submit challenges to the Supreme Court within 7 days of the election results being declared. These and other issues of irregularities have dominated discussions during the week. Well, let's broaden this more as we bring on board our discussants to look at these issues. We do have Dr. Richard Conteh. He is the co-chair Electoral Management Committee of the All People's Congress, APC. Imran Sillah is a campaign media member of the ruling Sierra Leone People's Party, SLPP. And we're being also joined by an election observer and governance expert in Nigeria, Mr. Uyi Aigbe. Gentlemen, welcome to the program and thank you so much for your time. Just before we start, for record purpose, we had reached out to the Electoral Commission to have a representation in this conversation. Up to now, we're yet to get a response, but we will keep on trying to get the sides of the Electoral Commission in this conversation or subsequent edition of the program. But let's start with you, sir. Well, there were concerns raised by opposition political parties before the elections. Notably among them is a call for the removal of the Electoral Commissioner or Electoral Head, Mohamed Conteh, a projection of results. There were also concerns about swing states. Are you satisfied with the overall conduct of the election? Mr. Sillah, this is for you.
No presidential candidate has ended up at State House without winning Connaught District. So the Americans would tell you they have swing states, right? We have certain districts that are considered to be swing states in Sierra Leone. Connaught is one of them. Koinadugu and Falaba can be added. Western area is also one you can consider and put into that equation. Now, in 2018, it has to be noted that President Bio found it good State House that not include Western area, and he did not lose it by much, but had sufficiently enough to get State House without winning Western area. We know for a fact that you have to win for President Bio in these elections. And therefore, it shows that we took our responsibilities very seriously. We knew the areas we had to focus. The South and the East, which are considered strongholds of the SLPP, we did our job, campaigned vigorously, making sure that was in the box as we focused on other areas. And so I think it is wrong for the APC to begin to cry foul now that election results are out and they have lost the election. I want to know that not everybody in the APC feels the same way as Richard said. And I would like to cite Alfred Peter Conteh. And Dr. Richard Conteh knows Alfred Peter Conteh very well, because at one point he was the interim leader of the APC, right, and was meant to lead a transition that eventually got them to a new national executive and all the rest of it. He said before the elections, ours is a missed opportunity for the APC. He knew they were going to lose the elections. He said so exactly. Ours is a missed opportunity. He has tweeted now, congratulating his and asking his party to go back internally and have that autopsy done and do the right thing and get themselves.
Mr. Sillah, let me bring this to your attention. Just before the final results were announced, I mean, all of the observers, including the EU, all of them, the UN and the rest, had all concluded, and even local election observers, that there was going to be a runoff in the elections. But within, twinkle of an eye, thereabout, the result, we saw, your principal gaining the highest vote. And as such, people were wondering what happened, what were the magic that the ECSL did to ensure that we had a margin, because already it was concluded there's going to be a runoff. But before you respond to that, let me bring in Dr. Conteh here. Dr. Conteh, you saw that incident just a few hours before that election was announced. What would you say happened at that point? Was there any change in the plan or in the status or how the ECL was supposed to have run in the announcement of this election, the result of the election?
Nothing actually changed. All they did was they had an outcome they wanted. They had figures predetermined. And so they walked backwards. And it will surprise you to know that as I speak, they have deleted all 2023 results from the ECSL website. There's nothing there. So even what they announced and had uploaded, they have removed from their website. And let me just respond quickly to some of the issues that Imran was raising. Let me say that it is not true that no president has ever won an election without Conteh. We lost APC Conteh in 2007, but won the presidential election in 2007. So it's not true. Even our then vice presidential candidate lost his seat in Conteh. But overall, APC was still able to win the presidential elections in 2007. So that assertion is not correct. We know that elections should start at 5. In many stations, it did not start at 7, and at 5, they rushed to close it down, where ECSL had announced that they will extend till 8. That in itself is suppression of voters, suppression of ballots. And that in itself is disenfranchisement. APC had pre-positioned party agents for all stations all over the country, and we had paid funds the monies for this deployment. The SLPP had a well-planned strategy of violence, kicking our party agents out of all the stations, even where they deployed on polling day. They went and dragged them out of those stations just so that they would have an opportunity to stop the ballots. And if you look at the pattern of voting, you would see that in those their southeast districts, they had close to 100% voter turnout, and all of those votes being cast for largely for one political party, which except for Moyamba, which is just not realistic. And because if you compare those statistics with the results of by-elections that are conducted in those districts over the years, they did not reflect that same pattern. Alfred Peter Conteh was speaking for himself. He has a right to his opinion. He is no longer the leader of the APC party, and whatever he says or does not say is just his opinion and does not reflect the position of the All People's Congress Party. In any case, I know that he must have some serious issues to contend with. Our own case, the APC, we are saying elections have to be seen to be free, fair, transparent, and credible. And without exception, all observers, national and international, are in agreement that these elections were not credible. So it's not only the APC saying it, it's also the independent observers saying it. And it was so blatant. And everything came to a head to even say that the issue of tabulation of results is standard practice. You know, that begs the question of sincerity.
Well, Dr. Conteh,
on the part of...
all right. Let me hold your thought there, please, and bring in Mr. Aigbe, who is an election observer and also a governance expert. Well, part of the report that has been going around is by the EU Observatory Mission that stated a lack of transparency and communication by the Electoral Authority. And they are saying that this led to mistrust in the electoral process. Mr. Aigbe, do you agree with this report that the ECL not coming out to do the needful in terms of communication, in terms of publishing election result by polling stations, is also adding to the mistrust in the electoral process?
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate this panel conversation, and I'll be speaking more from an outside perspective. Probably some of the things I'll be saying may not technically reflect the legal requirement or maybe the assertion of either the APC or the SLPP. First, I'd like to state that there are certain conditions for elections outcome. One has to do with transparency and what we talk about integrity of poll. And I'd like to also quickly put on record that in every election, there is usually this kind of contestation. The ruling party is always accused of taking control of the electoral management, not just in Sierra Leone, but literally across the African continent. In every election, there is always that tension. Election in Africa is almost like a war zone because of the externality of positions. Having said that, looking at Sierra Leone, I know that the APC had raised several issues of concern, and I'm happy that Dr. Chapman is who made a presentation in the peace meeting with the PCRC and other stakeholders. Those issues were raised, and the electoral committee chair responded to each of them, and for me, the communication was clear. However, in order to resolve that imbroglio, there was a need to resolve it behind closed door, and that was what happened afterwards. So what became the resolution is what we saw when the leader of the APC eventually, I think on Tuesday or so, asked the party members to prepare for election on Saturday. However, before the peace deal, the APC had requested that the election be postponed and the electoral committee chair particularly be removed or have to step down or have to rescue himself, citing some of those issues around nomination and all of that. Having said that, pre-election issues are usually the norm. In fact, in Nigeria, I just saw Nigeria happen in Sierra Leone because of usually what the opposition will bring to the table in order to create a scene that will not be post-election and then refer to what you have argued pre-election. On election day, the Electoral Commission had said they will post the results at the polling unit. My issue will be, did they post it? In certain areas where observers returned, elections results were posted at the polling unit. I cannot say it was absolute, it was 100%, I cannot. But the main crux of challenge was literally the collation. And I have had all manner of views, including from the APC, from NEW, that the National Electoral Watch, I've had from the citizen observers, I've had from EU and co, and I try to read in between. It is not exactly true. I think you make comment about all international observers projecting there will be a rerun. I'm not too sure I saw that press statement anywhere. I always saw the press statement that was released by NEW after the Electoral Commission released the 60 percentile, and the NEW report stated that in any case, none of the candidates will meet the threshold of 55%. But every other international observer statement pointed to the fact that the process should be transparent and it should be open so that all can see. And the response from the Electoral Commissioner will be that what they've done is not different, except the word difference. I'm aware too that during the some kind of by-election that happened, the commission had introduced some form of transparent system, in quotes. That's exactly what the APC had called for, that you need to project these results. You have to use a projector to project these results. And the commission responded, we cannot at this time because there are too many things that were happening. I thought that projection of results should have been an issue of pre-election where there will be an agreement and it is settled. Because in the pre-election conversation, one of the issues also raised by the APC was that they don't want, the APC didn't want the application, the introduction of app that transfers results from to the National Collation Center or to the National Electoral Commission. And that was argued. I don't know if eventually that came true. I don't know. I have no idea. The people on the call, Dr. Conteh and another colleague from the SLPP may have whether they did transfer. Yes, so but I know that there was certain information I was privy to, or that I knew about the electoral system, even though I was not a citizen. I just knew by the argument that was happening. I heard clearly from the electoral chair, and I heard clearly from the APC. I got statements released from the SLPP. If you look at all of those, it just tells you this is election. Everybody wants to win election. And just also quickly put on record that Sierra Leone is so unique that it is sharply divided, the country is sharply divided along political lines. You either of the north or the south. And for you to win election in Sierra Leone, you must make good headway to your opponent area. So if for example, the APC needs to make substantial inroad to the south, which is literally owned by the SLPP, and for the SLPP to win election, they must make inroad to the APC. So those are the kind of permutation. But again, for communication that the EU has said, we are hoping that the Electoral Commission will respond to that, and they will respond quickly. But what the Electoral Commission has responded is that the process of having a glass shade to protect those who were collating happened in 2018, but I don't know whether that's true because I didn't observe the 2018 election, and I will expect Dr. Conteh to either validate that and for SLPP so that we know whether the commission is actually communicating lie or they were insisting on the law, again, the law.
Well, Mr. Aigbe, let's talk about the demand of the APC before the elections. A couple of days you mentioned that the APC had called for the removal of the electoral chair. Would that have changed the case if that eventually happened?
No, but we know that it was not going to be realistic. We know, I think from experience, these are kind of things that happen. You put pressure. It's called pressure. You put pressure on the system so that the commission can do the right thing. In quotes, you are trying to push them to the wall so they don't manipulate. In case they have an ulterior motive, you are telling them that we know what you want to do. It's the narrative in every election. We are going to Liberia, you are going to hear it. Even in Senegal, you are going to hear it. It's a strategy. It's an opposition strategy, and it will continue. Whether in the United States, even though the Republican, if you check the politics ongoing now in America, you are going to know all of that. There's pressure on Donald Trump to try to keep Donald Trump out of the race. It's politics. It's politics.
Let me come to Mr. Imran. A transfer of results electronically. I mean, would this have fixed the argument we're having now? I mean, everybody can see as the election is being read out or as it being posted on their mobile phone or via whatever electronic medium. Do you think this would have solved this entire problem?
I don't think so. The APC were asking for things on a daily basis. So every day you wake up in the morning, the first thing you had to look for was what was the APC asking for now today? And then the following day it would be something else. Yeah. You had the Observer talking about getting the Electoral Commissioner and other commissioners. Now, even though that was unrealistic and probably it was a strategy by them, what that did to their supporters was realized when the results were announced. I live in an urban area, in Freetown, precisely. And I had people, who you would think are literate and understand enough to know that elections were never going to be postponed on Saturday, the 24th. I had them saying, oh, the elections are not going to ride. APC have cancelled the elections. They have agreed the elections are going to be postponed. Now, what that did was, you're talking about an urban area now. How about rural areas who get the information remotely and somehow were made to understand that the elections are going to be postponed? They never bothered to go and vote. That is the real reason, or one of the many reasons for voter suppression, and one more reason why APC lost these elections. They were ill-prepared, inconsistency in their messaging, talking about everything else but rather than looking internally as to how they could prepare themselves. And I think, look, it is wrong for Dr. Conteh to suggest that they had polling agents right across the country. I know for a fact, because we had it on the news, that in Kailao, they were called and asked to send an agent to go and represent them. When IRF form ballot papers went to Kailao, they refused. What? They said they didn't have polling agents to send. And it was not only in Kailao, in other places also. They didn't have polling agents to send. And so what do you expect? If you cannot sufficiently have 11 or 12,000 polling agents right across the country, right, you're setting yourself up to lose, number one. Second, on the issue of projections, right, to project the results as they were being entered, we know that did not happen in 20. We know for a fact that did not happen in 2012. We know for a fact that did not happen in 2007. No result, no tabulation, has ever been projected in this country. And so it was unrealistic for them to now ask for results to be projected as they were being entered. They had observers there who witnessed the process, including us from the SLPP and other political parties. In fact, so far, other political parties have come out now to congratulate President Bio, right? Even though the APC are saying they do not accept the outcome. Other political parties who had presidential candidates, who contested parliamentary elections, who contested mayoral elections, who contested other elections, have come out to congratulate President Maada Bio, accepting the process as being free, fair, and transparent. Now, on the issue of what conclusion were from the observers, I am a little bit taken aback, right? And I think the Nigerian observer touched on it very briefly. Now, we had about 4,000 polling stations across the country.
Yeah.
One of the institutions said that they have their results and that it was going to go into a runoff, a question you asked earlier, which I'm now going to answer. How do you now provide 720 or 730 observers for 11,200 or 11,300 polling stations and say you have sufficient data, right, to get to conclusion? That is insufficient by any statistical analysis. You need to be able to have at least 6,000 observers right across polling station to sufficiently be able to reach a conclusion. Even at that, it is not your responsibility, because you do not, I mean, as an observer, your responsibility is to go there and observe. You are invited by ECSL. They, by their own admission, including the European Union, that we were invited by ECSL. Now, if ECSL wanted to do anything, that's that they would not have invited observers to come in and observe the election. Your business is to observe. Your business is not to determine the outcome of elections. Your business is not to begin to insinuate and make suggestions as to what you feel, because that differs from you being an observer. You're now directly beginning to influence, right? Begin to question now, well, what is your mindset? What are your real intentions? You want to do regime change? Are you looking for something sinister? Yeah, you observe. You make your recommendations. Not to begin to suggest, well, the elections are going to go into a runoff.
Yeah.
By which calculation? Do you even have the required observers on the ground to get to those conclusions? Right? I mean, you don't. No institution would claim they had the required observers to be able to reach to the conclusion that they're now suggesting or insinuating. Right? So, look, Sierra Leone sends civil society organizations to the United States, yeah, to observe elections, right? We do. In 2020, even up to now, we know Donald Trump is still refusing to accept the outcome of the results. Right, for Biden won. And
let me cross over to Dr. Conteh. Dr. Conteh. Sorry, Mr. Imran. Let me just cross over to Dr. Conteh, who is also here. What's your thought on this statement Mr. Imran has mentioned? And do you think there was an issue of credibility where we saw just a couple of 20 minutes, 30 minutes thereabout after the result were announced by the ECL? We saw the swearing in, the announcement, swearing in thereabout of the incumbent swiftly within an hour. He took his oath of office and he went on. Just for curiosity's sake, because a lot of questions have been, flying around the bridge that why the swift swearing in an oath of office by the incumbent. Would you want to respond to that, Dr. Conteh?
Yeah, before I respond to that, let me just correct a few misstatements by Imran.
Okay.
First of all, NEW did not deploy 700 observers. NEW deployed 6,000 observers. Sierra Leone has 3,630 polling centers. So if you can deploy 6,000 observers, it means you can deploy observers in every center around the country. And that is precisely what NEW did. And that is all you need to be able to have the results, because the results are posted on the wall in the polling stations. And so all you can do is to take pictures after that exercise. You don't need two people to do that. One person can do it. So that is why NEW was able to say they have the results. Two, Sierra Leone has always practiced this tabulation system where the results are projected. Maybe Imran has not been involved in elections in the field. Maybe that's why he'll speak in this way. But if he has been involved, he would know that that has been a standard practice. And that is the only way we would know what the NEC official is input. You may wish to note that in Koinadugu, when we had a by-election, one elections official was caught tampering with the figures, changing the figures from 49 to 149. And we were able to pick that one up in the center in Koinadugu, where I was in person, because we were able to watch the projection on the wall, and we saw that they had inputted a different figure. And so that is how tallying is done in this country. It is projected on the wall, and that is the only way the political parties are able to know what is happening. The other correction I want to make for Mr. Sillah is that, when the materials arrived, political parties were invited to go and witness the arrival of the materials in Lunge. Honorable Abdul Kabo and other colleagues represented. I should have been there on that day in person to represent my party, but we were then in this negotiation, and so we sent Honorable Abdul Kabo. So again, it is not true that our party was never represented in this process. It's just to correct these misstatements. 4. The issue about glass shade. The issue is not about glass shade. The issue is about projection. Whether that's glass shade or no glass shade. As if the things are projected in a place where the observers and party agents can see what is being inputted, then it's fine. Because that is the only way political parties will be able to know exactly what the man on the computer there is inputting. But what is more worrisome, in fact, is that in this particular case, whilst that tabulation process was still going on, because according to section 92, 1, 2, and 3, the process is that after that tabulation process, what they have tabulated is printed out, certified by the district returning officer, who is the district elections manager in that district, and copies given to political parties and observers present. That never happened. No certification happened in the presence of observers or party agents, and no observer or party agent was given a copy of the certified results. Rather, what we are told is that we have from the grapevine is that they transmitted figures from the center to the district for them to certify. And what happened there, I don't want to say on international radio, because to be too embarrassing for my country. The issue about the app we raised was that, when you are developing a totally brand new app, it has to, first of all, this app is the property of the stakeholders, the political parties. We should know. We should be part of the process. It should be piloted. It should be tested. Nothing of the sort happened. So they just developed. We said, can you allow us to also be able to pilot test this app? And the mode of transmission is just the presiding officer and the polling center manager who will go and input figures and distribute straight away to their center. Who knows what they are inputting? When agents are not allowed to be there to know what they are being inputting. This is what we say, that the process was not transparent. There could be simple human error. Simple human error could set in because they've been working for 12 hours. They could tired, and at that point, simple human error could have come into play. So we had our apprehensions about that. On the issue about the Nigerian raised about the negotiations. Yes, luckily I was the one who spoke on behalf of my party and articulated our positions. And those positions are not new. These were concerns we've been raising at the level of the Political Party Liaison Committee. Those concerns we've been raising. And so we were saying, because of the way in which they've been going about these things, we lost confidence in the Electoral Commission and their ability to conduct free, fair, and credible elections. And what has actually happened now is a vindication of the position of it, because this is precisely what we have suspected would happen. And that is what they have just manifested to the public. Negotiations we did behind closed doors never yielded any dividend. Never yielded any dividend. Because when we went closed door, they simply refuted everything. They refused to budge on everything. We as a political party, after meeting with other stakeholders in this process, resolved that no, these people want to bring chaos into this country. These people want us to do something that will set the country back on place. We don't want that. We don't want to spill any blood. We're a very peaceful party. So our leaders said, in the interest of peace in our country, let's prepare ourselves and go into elections. And if you are following, you will see that the day after that, I also came out with a video encouraging our people to come out and vote. And our people were motivated and they came out in their numbers to vote. But then there was a deliberate attempt by the ECSL to stifle the process. How else would you explain ECSL sending officials to a station without any way of determining, apart from materials, even the identity of the staff? Nothing. In the past, they used to have uniforms that they wore, that when you come to the station, you know exactly who is the party agent and you know who is the NEC official. This time, nothing of the sort. The materials, how will you know that there are 300 people who are going to vote in this station? How will you bring 100 ballot papers? And then after that, you say, I have to go back to the office to go and bring. How would you, for example, fail to come to a station as a PCM when you know the voting should start at 7, and then you come there at 10? So these were all deliberate attempts to just ensure that they undermine the process, And maybe we also need to know, Nigerian mentioned about the northwest and southeast divide. That is very true. But it is also a fact that if you look at the figures, the raw figures, before ballot, there were 600 plus more voters, potential voters in the northeast, in the northwest regions as compared to the southeast regions. So there is that numerical advantage up front, so which gives the north and the west that edge, no matter what. If it's free, fair, and transparent process, and if what he's saying is true, the advantage should always go in that regard. Sierra Leone has a unique. Now let me answer the question about the Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone has a unique pattern which is different from other countries. In Nigeria, you vote, they announce the results today, and you wait for 3 months before you swear in. In Sierra Leone, they swear in the same day the final election results.
So in other words, it was in order. The swearing in, it was in order and constitutionally.
APC has no problem with the fact that they swore in immediately.
Okay.
What we have to do with is that what was announced as the final result was not credible, and it does not reflect the will of the Sierra Leonean people, and that it is it undermines democracy. And it's an indictment for the Electoral Commission.
Before we round up this conversation, let me go to Mr. Aigbe. We've always had serious issues when it comes to elections, not just in Africa, particularly in ECOWAS states. The next election we have is Liberia, and followed by Senegal, which may be a very tough one because of the current situation in the country. What are the things that our leaders can do to strengthen some of these electoral institutions and don't give way for the issues, the recurring issues, which we keep on seeing every election year in all countries in West Africa? Mr. Aigbe, this is for you.
I'm happy that, thank you, Dr. Conteh, for providing that direct answer to swearing in. Because I've tried to respond to this again and again. People continue to spread that level of disinformation that they swear, they just announce result and swearing in, so that's the system, that's the law of the country.
Yeah.
You can't take away their law, and you must understand the law of a country before you even make assertion. And just also add to what Dr. Conteh said about the new had 2 levels of deployment. There's a PBT deployment, PROVT deployment, and there's a general level deployment. So they had 6,000 plus observers that were spread across. Then for the PBT, which is the parallel voter tabulation, it is systematically and scientifically done in a way that you don't even need to deploy across the country, across the polling unit, but you strategically, through stratified method, to allocate polling unit and then you deploy to that polling unit, is proven to be scientifically significant by all standards. 7%, you can argue that the sample is low or high, either way, but Ghana had 5% in the 2020 election. In 2018, had 5.1% or thereabout. So 7% is actually a higher number compared to 2018, just to put that on record. But however, whether it has capacity to announce results is a different ball game. But statistically significant method has been proven, even though it also has its own shortfalls, like we had in Kenya election, I think it was in 2007 or thereabout, and all of that. So let me go to your question. Liberia and Senegal. I worry about Senegal because that's where my heart is. I recall in 2012, President Maada was going to be removed. This same struggle in Senegal happened. I recall how young people went around the world. I met them in 2 locations in New York. I met them in New York and in Geneva, advocating for global support to end a top 10 bid. It was the young people with music who actually stopped the top 10 bid of President Maada. And here you have Macky Sall, who then benefited from that advocacy, from that all of those global attention, now wanted to also become a top 10 candidate. Again, the challenge of our continent, in fact of our region, has to do with leadership. Everybody wants to now become like Rwanda. After all, the model of Rwanda, you can have a government to stay for long and develop. That's also not true. Cameroon has proved us wrong. Uganda has proved us wrong that your long stay does not mean development, as it were. So I think that what we can do, and that's part of the things I think Sierra Leone can also learn from. I've said elsewhere that Sierra Leone changing electoral system almost in every election does not consolidate on the democracy or the architecture, as it were. Next election, this election now is a district block PRO system. Maybe by the next election they change again. How do you now consolidate on knowing that in the next 5 years I can work my way to strategically look at the pitfalls I have in my elections, walk ahead and try to beat the other candidate ahead of the election? Because election in Sierra Leone, even though your opening commentary that the elections are gone, elections are not yet over. That's why we are talking about the election now. In case the APC need to go to court, the election process continues. So the process for election has begun already. People know, okay, if I truly lost the election, what can I do in the next 4 years? In Liberia, way is having serious concern. The space is gradually shrinking. People are getting arrested for making commentaries on Facebook. They just want to win election by all means. And you're going to see the same narrative, like I said just now, about what had happened in Sierra Leone. Yeah. Until we consolidate, that we remove power from politics. So it's political power. Let's make it political and remove the power. If we're able to do that, we remove the resources of office from those political offices. The quest for power and the avenue for corruption is making this do or that we now have to lose the election. And if you listen to people who have heard talk about this election, some APC members have said that our region has lost. It pains me.
All right, thank you very much for your closing remark there, Mr. Aigbe. Well, Dr. Conteh, you have your final word to say before we go on this platform?
Yeah, I think I want to just state that I agree fully with the conclusions of our brother concerning the challenges we are facing at ECOWAS. I also happen to have been a civil society activist at the level of ECOWAS. I worked as head of civil society in West Africa for 4 years in ECOWAS, and I championed efforts at improving the whole issue around the governance infrastructure for elections around West Africa. And it's that experience that I brought to bear in my country. And that is why I focus on issues. I don't focus. I just insist whenever I make my arguments about sticking to the laws. I agree that it's not right for people to be changing laws just because you think that if I change this law today, it will favor me. No. That's not how we deepen democracy. We have to have a system that works for us, and then we apply it over time. Naturally, there is always room for improvements, and I think we are making those progress. But in summary, what we are stating as APC is that if we have, let us lose fairly. But blatant robbery of the will of the people is not right. And what has obtained in these elections is a clear case of the Electoral Commission being a champion to ensure that they deprive the people of their right to elect leadership that should govern them. And that, I think, is what APC is against. And we are calling on well-wishers and partners to just ensure that the right thing happens.
Indeed.
Consistent with our laws, consistent with best practice in electoral administration around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed. Mr. Imran, your closing remark, please.
So when I stated that New only reported on 747 polling stations, that wasn't coming from me. It wasn't figures I made up. That came from the very new report. So I was actually quoting them. That New only used 747 polling stations out of 11,832 polling stations to make their conclusion. Look, by any data or statistical analysis, that is insufficient. It does not even meet the threshold. We have also seen over the past 24 hours, other civil society organizations who are meant to be part of New disassociating themselves from the posture taken by the leader of New. Completely. They were all over radio and TV this morning, distancing and disassociating themselves from her, saying that those conclusions have nothing to do with them. They were never consulted, and they do not subscribe to her position. So that has to be noted also. Now, look, when we hold elections so that we can have a representation of the people's will, free, fair, and transparent elections. It is 56-point-something% for President Julius Maada Bio. The total number of votes is in excess of 400,000 that we surpassed the All People's Congress by. And we're able to play in areas that they consider to be their stronghold. So I've cited Koinadugu, I have cited Kabbalah, I've cited Kono. Look, we have swing states in Sierra Leone. Dr. Richard Conteh does not seem to think that Kono is one of them. But look, there is always a pathway to State House, and that has to include Kono District, Western Urban, Koinadugu, Falaba, and one of those places, Cambia, right? And so as long as you can plot a way to State House using one of those districts, you're sure to get there. Well, we did our assignment well. We knew what the message was going to be. We were very consistent. There were no internal struggles in the SLPP, and that is why we have emerged victorious. So, just one more addition before I finish. I cited their leader, and he has stated that, well, it's his opinion, Alfred Peter Conteh. Dr. Sylvia Olainka Blyden has also congratulated President Julius Maada Bio, and she thinks, in her view, that New had no reason to announce any result. It is none of their business. They were simply there to observe. They do not have the mandate as provided for by law, and she has distanced herself completely from those conclusions. So that is one more addition to Alfred Peter Conteh. Look, I think every political party now have a responsibility to look back internally and see where they got it wrong. And I think the APC has a lot of homework to do between now and 2028. For us as a government, the Excellency the President focused on bringing people together, healing the divide. The campaign has been spirited, it has been passionate. There are no two ways about that, but it's about moving forward. It's about national development. He has talked about bringing progressives on board, right? And I think he's looking forward to working with progressives. He has also extended an olive branch to Dr. Samura Kamara, and would like to bring him on board of some sorts. Yeah, okay. It's about national development. It's about moving the country forward.
Indeed.
That is our focus. That is His Excellency.
Thank you very much there, Imran Sillah, for being part of this conversation. Dr. Richard Conteh, thank you so much for your time. And Mr. Uyi Aigbe, thank you so much also for obliging and to be part of this discussion. Thank you, gentlemen. We truly appreciate your time and the discussion. And we hope to have this some other time. Thank you so much, and do have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Our guest for this edition has been Dr. Richard Conteh, the co-chair Electoral Management Committee of the All People's Congress. Mr. Imran Sillah is campaign media member of the ruling Sierra Leone's People's Party, SLPP, and an election observer and governance expert in Nigeria, Uyi Aigbe. We would love to hear from you on any of these stories that we have reviewed and even the discussions we've had today. You can send us an email to wadr@wadr.org. You can also check out our YouTube videos and join us in the Twitter conversation. And after we wrap things up on this edition of Weekly Top News on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar, join us next week for another review and insightful analysis of major news development. I am Imo Edet. Bye for now.